We are so excited to be hosting Lol Tolhurst tonight to discuss his new book, GOTH, A History. Before we get started, just a couple of housekeeping things. Please silence your cell phones during the discussion. You don't want to be that person. Books are available for purchase. Most of you have your book already. Thank you for buying them. It keeps our doors open. It makes great events like this possible, and we really appreciate it. We host great events several times a week, so if you're not already on our email list, please consider joining, or just follow us on, what is it now, X? Instagram, Facebook, if you still do Facebook. It's great. We're really excited to have you. I just want to also say, Lol's first book, Cured, is available for purchase tonight. We have copies at the register, so consider picking up one of that, because when are you going to see Lol again? So, okay, a few words about our special guests. Joe Wong is the Los Angeles-based composer, musician, producer, and podcast host. As a composer, Joe Wong's projects include Master of None, Russian Doll, and The Midnight Gospel. Among his many other projects, he also hosts and co-produces The Trap Set, a podcast radio show about the lives of musicians. He's here tonight to talk to our special guest. Lol Tolhurst is a founding member of the former drummer and keyboardist of The Cure. Yeah, let's hear it for The Cure. He was later involved in the band Presence in his current project, Leavenhurst. In addition, Lol is an inductee to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Yeah. And the author of the previous book, Cured, A Tale of Two Imaginary Boys. And I might add, he has an excellent new song called Los Angeles that he does with Budgie and James Murphy. And if you have not heard it yet, get thee to a Spotify. It's a great song. Please join me in welcoming Joe and Lol.
Good evening, everybody. Do we have any goths here?
Recovering with therapy.
Well, Lol, you've been doing a lot of book touring lately, but can you remember any early Cure gigs when you played to a small room like this?
Yeah, Boston. We played somewhere like the Underground or something, and everybody was round the corner as well, so it was like we were here and everybody was round the corner. Very similar, yeah.
Was that with Mission of Burma?
Yes, it was.
Okay. What year would that have been?
1903. No, I don't know, 1979, something like that, yeah.
Well, let's kick it off with the passage that you've selected for tonight. And this is from the book that most of you have, Goth, your second.
Yeah, this one. Okay, so, excuse me while I get my glasses on, because everybody has to at this age.
Yeah.
Are the frames black?
That's okay. Thank you much. Okay, so this is about what really started me on the road to all of this stuff. Joe Strummer, the firebrand of punk. Joe Strummer saved my life and made me who I am today. Not literally, you understand, but the punk movement showed me how to become a man. Sir Joseph Strummer, knee Mellor, later Maida Vale, West London and the West Country, saved my life because undoubtedly, without the Clash, the band Joe joined from the still warm ashes of the 101ers, I would not have started on the path that led me here, that led me to music, art, literature, cinema, et al., to true manhood, the real trip. He saved me from being down and out in Hawley and the home counties, dead on arrival in suburban desolation. As I look back, I see the signposts, how the times and the music were drawing me into what's become a lifelong journey into the angst and artistic art of this world's truths. Because of Joe, I chose a peripatetic life for my younger self. Punk rock educated me. The storm it threw me into was a vortex that I gladly embraced. I had seen the Clash play with Robert in our hometown and witnessed firsthand the transformative power Strummer wielded over the violent and Neanderthal skins that wanted to dismember the opening act, Alan Vega's band Suicide from New York, for the crime from being from somewhere else. Strummer single-handedly talked the old beer monsters down and diffused a very tense situation. Utterly awesome. I didn't try to go backstage after the show. I was too much in awe of the whole process back then to want to step into the Royal Palace. But first, that night I saw the clash with Robert. Everything changed. We and a handful of others would help spearhead a new genre of music that, like punk, had its own style that continues today. We were labelled New Wave before anybody thought of the name Goth, and truth be told, we weren't quite punk or any old style of rock. We were evolving into something different. Post-punk. Personally, I was looking for something with a more spiritual, perhaps even mystical sense than the straight nihilism of punk. Art, specifically music, had taken hold of me, or perhaps I had a hold of it. It was my way of making sense in this confusing new world. I latched onto music the way a drowning man clutches at anything floating past to save his life. It was that important to me. For us, music wasn't just entertainment on our way to meet girls. Personally, I had to become wholly invested in it and its power to create purpose in my own world. Otherwise, I felt I might perish, or even worse, disappear in suburbia, lost forever in a happy crowd. I needed to believe in its power. In that way, what I saw that night at my first Clash show was more akin to one of St. Augustine's ecstatic visions than a simple rock show. Then there was Alan Vega and Martin Rev of Suicide, the opening band, minimal, stark and brutal. They had goth in their dark hearts. They called it punk music, New York punk to be precise, and we understood it at once. In England, the punk explosion was a direct response to the austere times brought on by the crippling recession and totalitarian political climate that Thatcher and her cronies inspired. Yes, we were bored teenagers, as the adverts sang, but we also agreed with the Sex Pistols. There was no future for us. We had to make our own future, and initially, punk was the only attractive alternative. Growing up in the late 60s and early 70s, we had been taught that only exceptionally gifted people could be artists. This was especially true in the class-ridden society of post-war England. We always felt the disapproval of our supposed betters. There was no escaping it. Punk helped turn all that on its head. We finally had a way out. The doors of perception were flung wide open and we rushed headlong into the new punk dawn. Only then did we realise we had left something behind that we might need. Art, poetry, light and darkness, especially darkness. I mean, punk was essential to our understanding of anarchy and nihilism, but once we kicked down the doors and broke the chains of repression, what was in our new nirvana? Not much, actually. England had just joined the European community in the mid-70s. However, we were yet to receive the benefits of such an association. Dark times indeed. We needed to believe in something. Art was a dangerous currency again. The paintings of artists like Francis Bacon served to illuminate our worldview. Whatever it wasn't clean and it wasn't pretty. One of the things post-punk liberated was the sense of romantic longing that's inherent in teen lives. We were able to jump out of the misogynistic musical quicksand of the 70s, cross over the bridge of punk, and give voice to the 1,000 bedsit poets in love with the melancholy beauty of existence. You could be a sensitive young man or woman without the chest-thumping machismo of sexism of old. You could be in touch with your unease, something that every teen intuitively understands. Out of the firestorm of punk arose a different beast, more suited to my personality and particular emotions, the ghosts of some distant spiritual alchemists rising once again.
What I find particularly striking about that passage is that I think if we were to ask anyone in this room, The Cure functioned in a similar way in their lives, where it gave voice to their disease or their lack of feeling like they belong in a place,
Right.
and The Cure kicked open the doors of perception for those folks. Right, folks?
Thank you.
So what was the impetus to write this second book about goth itself? As you said, that was not a term that you imposed on your music. It was probably, similar to rock and roll or any other, or jazz or any kind of other genre imposed by the journalists or other folks. So what is it about goth or this genre that fascinated you to the point that you wanted to write about it?
Well, you're right in that, you know, we never really considered ourselves anything. I mean, in the early days, people would say to us, we would meet journalists and they would say, well, what do you call your music? And Robert would always go, well, it's Cure music. You know, he wouldn't give it a title. And we were sort of against giving it a title. But I come to realise after the last book, going around talking to a lot of people, what they all found interesting was the actual experience of living through those times, you know, because the iPhone wasn't a thing, there's not that many photographs, you know, there are some, obviously, but, you know, it's sort of another world, another territory to a lot of people, so they wanted to know about it, and so I thought, well, okay, I was there, I know what went on, I can report about it. I think the idea of goth as a moniker or a name is a bit misguided because it's not really like a way of it's not like a style of music or even a way of looking. To me, it's more of a philosophy. It's a way that you live your life. And I know a lot of people who are goth that you probably wouldn't consider that they were goth, but they are in their outlook. And so, to that extent, it's something that interests me as a way of life. You know. So,
how would you characterize a goth outlook?
I think in some ways it's very similar to the way that the hippies looked at things. You know, it's very inclusive. I can remember back in the day going to the Batcave Club, and you know there's lots of pictures of the Batcave, and you see everybody, you know, with bats and things hanging around there. But that wasn't it really. You know, everybody was there. You didn't get excluded. You didn't arrive at the front door and they go, oh no, you don't look goth enough, you're not coming in, you know. So everybody was there, and I like that exclusivity that doesn't exclude anybody, and that's really what was attractive to me about it, and that's what I think is still attractive to me, that it's like, you know, if you say you're goth, you are, you know, it doesn't, there's no sort of structure to it. That's the simplest way to describe it, I think.
Yeah, and in the book you detail other artists in different media that you consider goth. I mean, for example, Sylvia Plath. So can you talk a little bit about some of those artists that inspired what became The Cure? Yeah,
I mean, you know, for us, I think what happened, I was talking to somebody about this today, what happened is, you know, we were 16 or 17 and punk came along, and we were very excited by that. We finally thought, yeah, we can do something. We can make, you know, because you have to remember in the late 70s, what really existed mostly musically for most of us was disco, you know, which is fine, you know, there's some good things there. And prog rock, which is fine, there's some good things there, but you know, there's a lot of overblown nonsense as well. So we never really thought that we could do that, you know. I mean, in the early days, we used to start off with, we'd make like these triptychs of songs, which was a little proggy, perhaps, you know.
Yeah, I mean, King Crimson literally had triptychs of songs. So
right,
yes.
Right, yeah, so we did a bit of that, but you know, then we thought, okay, well, punk, you know, specifically bands like Buzzcocks, you know, great, 3-minute songs, wonderful stuff. So we thought, okay, we'll take our lead from there. But there's a point where we were like, you know what, we still like all this other stuff, this art and this other stuff, you know, like the existentialist stuff, Camus and such. And for me, Sylvia Plath particularly, I loved her poetry, and I really loved her only novel. You know, that spoke to me in lots of ways, even though it was written, you know, like I would consider her like proto-feminist in lots of ways. It was written in a way that I could understand it, and that was really the difference, because up until that point, rock music, for want of a better phrase, was very certain, and like, you know, you had to come out and say, you know, yeah, I'm going to do this, we are the champions, everything's great, we're wonderful, you know. And for the first time, we were able to sort of express that perhaps there's a little unease somewhere there going on that wasn't quite right, which felt much more in tune with the way that we perceived life.
And I think if you were to speak personally with the type of people that sing We Are the Champions, they're definitely experiencing unease in their personal life, and they're compensating by projecting bravado in their music.
Yeah.
And you kind of leaned into the uncertainty, into the darkness.
Yeah, and I think, one thing that always irked me, people would say to me, "Oh, your music is, very dark, very depressing," and people who are very depressed, maybe they get more depressed from it. Maybe they hurt themselves, and I would be upset by that, because I say, no, that's not the truth at all. In fact, the opposite is true. This is a way to, the amount of people in my life in the last 40 years have said to me, I heard what you wrote about, and I was at a time where things weren't great, and this helped me, not hindered me. This didn't send me further into the abyss, And even in like probably our most stark record, Pornography, even at the end of that, there's like salvation, I must find a cure. That's the last lyric. It's so, to me, this music has always been hopeful, which I know sounds like an oxymoron, but it's not.
I think that, if you listen to a blues record, you don't necessarily think you're going to jump out of a building either.
No. I think a lot of the trouble is that people, and cast no aspersions about journalists particularly, but a lot of the time to make something simplistic and look at it in a simple way is to, my friend Kathy Unsworth said this the other night. I did a thing in London like this, and she said, yes, they wanted to defang us, which is kind of true. They wanted to take the power away, so they said, oh, it's all about bats and sleeping in coffins. And no, I know a guy in Portland that sleeps in a coffin, but it generally, that's not who he's got.
Is it Fred Armisen that you're referring to?
I'm not saying anything about Fred, but it might be. Yeah,
but you did just collaborate with Fred on.
Well, yes, you just made a video with him, so he's going to be in the video, which is brilliant. He's brilliant. He's and he's a drummer as well. Now, see, here you've got all drummers are friends. Joe's a drummer too, right? So all drummers are friends. It's like goalkeepers, It's like we're all friends. It's like the Freemasons, really. Is what it is.
I think Freemasons are more powerful in society.
Well, I don't know, because if you haven't got a good drummer, your band is shit.
No, that's true. That's true. Well, did you ever feel like you were being defanged? And did you ever feel like the massive popular success that the band experienced relatively quickly was at odds to the scene from whence you came, or from, did it feel confusing that you were exploring this underground scene and then all of a sudden it became massively popular?
Yes, no. I think the truth is that at that age, I just assumed naively, everything was going to follow on from everything else. We're going to play bigger places this year. Oh, okay, that's what happens, And it wasn't until it didn't happen anymore for me, until I had this massive sort of change in my life, that I figured, maybe that's not how it always goes or always feels. But I think, if not us, who else was it going to be? That's the way we felt about it.
I don't know, Bauhaus or...
That's true. That's true. But we felt, okay, well, that's like, there's that program in England, I'm sure a lot of you know about it, Top of the Pops, which was the only TV show that anybody could be on. And generally it was a pile of rubbish, but every so often they had some good bands. The Clash played, and different people played. So.
Didn't you tell me that seeing Bowie on Top of the Pops changed your life?
Yeah, 1972. It pointed out the screen, I had to call someone, and I picked on you. And I felt it right there. Yes, he's picking, he's pointing to me, and it started on that route. But so occasionally I had some things, but generally, that made pop music kind of defanged, I guess, and it was much quieter, and we came along and things were different, and we were happy to be in that position.
Talk a little bit about how you remained a goth but changed and evolved as a person when you left the band?
I don't know. I mean, I ended up here. Los Angeles is my home. I'm very grateful to this place, because I arrived here 94 when things had gotten very bad for me. The band had dissolved. My first marriage had dissolved. Had all kinds of other things happen to me, and I arrived here just down the street from here, and I was couch surfing with my friends. And what happens a lot of the time, in popular culture in Los Angeles, people come here and they get discovered, or they get destroyed, or both things happen, one after the other, right? And neither of those things happened to me. What happened was I felt acceptance, I found love, I found a community of people that understood stuff. So in that way, the things that I had learned in being, approaching life in a different way helped me here and helped me open my mind up to what was going on and how it could go on. So, I see people, I know a couple here that have ostensibly what is a goth shop, right? A store. And I know they're going to run it until the day they die. I know that, and it's like, they haven't changed. They haven't suddenly decided, oh, well, we're 45 or 50 and we better not be like this anymore. We better, they still keep their values about their life. And I think that's very important in maintaining, the picture of who you are as a person and not sort of kowtowing to, popular culture that's going to make you conform all the time. It's about being non-conformist. There's not a single conformist in this room. I know that, right? Yeah.
Well, let's talk about another non-conformist whom we both love, a guy by the name of Budgie. Who, if you don't know, was the drummer of the Slits and Susie and the Banshees and the Creatures, and just one of the great drummers of all time.
He's the best drummer of my generation. I know that. He was here for a couple of weeks, like last week, and we were rehearsing because we're going to tour. And thank you. Because we made a whole album, and it's all coming out, and I hope you're going to love it. I think you will. But we're going to play, and I could just sit there and watch him. Just sit down for an hour and just watch him play.
Do you remember who you first saw him play with?
Actually, I didn't see it. I may have seen him with the Slits because I saw the Clash play, and I'm sure the Slits were playing at one point. But I didn't really know him enough. I didn't see him until the Cure opened for the Banshees in 1979.
And Robert was in the Banshees at the time.
Well, he got to be in the Banshees because what happened, two John and Kenny ran off in Aberdeen, and we sort of played a couple of songs with them that night, and then Robert stood in, and Budgie came.
So then, flash forward 40 years, and you and Budgie meet up again in LA. And how does it feel to be reconnected with him? And
it was with you, actually, yes, at a dinner. Breakfast.
It was a diner, and it was you, Budgie, and Kevin from Bauhaus and Love and Rockets, and myself. And I was the only one not wearing black. Breakfast.
Yeah, and can you pay to this mystery, because I don't remember. Like, I knew Kevin sort of, but I don't remember that we invited him to come down there.
No, because Budgie is the great unifier, and right. Kevin was such a fan of Budgie's, and they had played together way back when.
Right. That makes sense.
But what was the impetus to make music with another drummer, and how did you pull it off?
I don't know. We sat there for breakfast, and we Budgie, I sort of, he drifted in and out of my life every time the Banshees were here or somebody was here. Then I'd go and see him, and we'd talk and stuff. But at that breakfast, it was me, him, and Kevin sitting there, and I was like, the three tenors, no, the three drummers, that's what we're going to do, right? And I suggested it to them, and they both went, okay, let's do it, And so Budgie finished off his tour with John Grant that he was on, and then he came back and stayed at my house, and me and him and Kevin, we piled in a lot of stuff into my car that makes noise, and we drove up the coast. A friend of mine, another drummer, has a house and it's going to get better. The story's going to get really good, right? So we got up to Morro Bay, you know, and we were sitting in this house that my friend owns, looking over the bay and just making noise for a week. We just sat there, we just, you know, anything. My friend had his little kids, and Kevin had some staff, and Roger had some staff, and I had some staff, and we played all this stuff. And then we would go to the in Morro Bay, there's a lovely vegan restaurant. We'd go down there for lunch, and then we'd come back, and then we went into the local music store, and they gave us stuff. They didn't even want to lend it to us. They said, no, you have it. You have it. Have all this stuff to play. And it was so nice. Anyway, so after about a week, we thought, okay, we've got some stuff. We need to record it properly. And we came back here, and I called up a friend of mine, who nobody in this room would probably guess who his friend was, but and why his friend. But I called up Tommy Lee from right? And I said, Tommy, I've got this project I'm doing. I know you have a great studio in your house. Can we come?
Did you see it on Cribs? How did you know you had a great studio in this house?
Well, I'd seen some pictures, but also me and Tommy are pals, because back in the day, The Cure and Motley Crue and Madonna were all on the same circuit one summer, you know. So Motley Crue would play the town that we were playing the day before or the day after, and Madonna the same thing. We never saw Madonna at our hotels, you know. She would just sort of disappear in this elevator, and all her fans would be left outside going, we've been out here for 2 days and she never says anything to us, you know. So we commiserate with
Is
them.
she the person that sleeps in the coffin, or no?
She did that. I've done that, yeah. So I go into the bar, and there's Tommy Lee sitting at the bar. So we'd sit and talk about, you know, his thing that goes upside down and plays drums on and stuff. But he's a really nice guy, and so I knew that he had the drums. So I called him up and said, "Can we come to your studio?" And he said, "Yeah." He said, but don't bring any drums." And I went, "Okay." He said, "Yeah." He said, "Because I've got a shitload of drums," and he was right. He has a room that's about the size of this store, full of drums, nothing else, just drums, right? So we went over there, and we recorded, and at that point we got in Danny Lohner from Nine Inch Nails, who's a friend of Kevin's, right? And we said, "You come and help us produce, you know, some stuff." And he went, "Yeah, sure." So there's, you know, 4 of us sitting there, we're working on stuff, and it was good. I liked it, you know. And every afternoon Tommy would come and sit with us, and I think, you know, a bit wistfully, I think he was hoping we would ask, you know, you come and play, but, you know, 3 drummers, 4 drummers, maybe. Anyway. But it would have been lovely if he'd said yes. Anyway,
There's always the next album.
Yeah, well, that's true actually. We have got a famous drummer on the next album as well. I'm not going to tell you anything. Okay, so we sort of finished, and then we thought, it kind of sounds like what you think a record would sound like, with a guy from The Cure, a guy from the Banshees, a guy from Bauhaus, produced by a guy from Nine Inch Nails. And we're like, no, we don't want that's legacy. We're not a legacy act yet, you know. So at that point, fate intervened, because Kevin had to go and play with Bauhaus on their big tour. So he left, and me and Budgie were left there sort of twiddling our thumbs and going, well, what are we going to do now? And I knew Jackknife Lee socially, because some friends of mine knew him. So, but I also knew who he was and what he did, but I'd never worked with him before. And so we were at this festival. This is an LA story. We were at this festival in Topanga Canyon, right? An old hippie festival, and I'm sitting there talking with Jackknife, and Robin Densmore's there, comes and introduces Willie Nelson's Sons band, you know. And I'm not, you can imagine, I'm not a big country guy, right? But they were brilliant. I mean, they just sound like punk country. It was brilliant. I got it, you know. So we were sort of on fire from listening to that. And I said, I've got this record, can I come and play it to you, because I don't know what to do with it? And he went, yeah. And I went up to he's got this studio right at the top of Topanga Canyon, and I went up there and played it to him, and he said, listened to it for about 3 or 4 hours, and then he said, you know what, like an Orange Juice song, he said, why don't we rip it up and start again? And I went, okay, that's good. And I came out and I called Budgie, I was probably in tears. I said, I found our man, I found our guy we can work with, this is going to be great. So get on the plane again and come up. Budgie lives in Berlin, right? So get on the plane again, come stay at my place. We'll go and work with Jackknife and see what happens. And it was great from the first day because we did it like we. You know, when you know this, when you first start playing an instrument, you sit around a room with your friends and you just make noise. You know, nobody actually has any structures. And you know, later on when you've got a band, everybody sort of says, like, I'm the guitarist, I only do this, or I'm the keyboard player, I only do, this is what I do, you know, and you get very stuck in your roles. But Jackknife Studio is like an Aladdin's cave. It has a room that's full of every synth known to man, and then another room that's just full of drums. There's nothing else there, drums and synths. And so we would go up every morning, drink coffee, and then he's a big audiophile like yourself. He has like thousands of records and 10 or 20 come every day. And we'd be talking about something, having a cup of coffee, getting to know each other better. And he'd go, oh, I've got that record, and we'd pull it out and play it, and we'd have a listen and go, should we go make some music? And then me and Budgie would just go in there and just bang things, sing. I found out Budgie's a great harmonica player, but people don't really know. He can, you know, he's great. And we just do stuff, and then we go home, and we'd have dinner, and the next day we'd go back to his house, and he'd go, have a listen. And he chopped everything together, and we go, oh, that sounds, let's do this bit a bit more, and that's how we made the whole album. So, you know it's us, but it doesn't sound like what you think at all, which is great for us as well as musicians. It was very innovating, you know. And then the pandemic came. You know, I took Budgie to the airport and put him on the plane back to Germany, and the whole world was shutting down. In fact, I could tell the whole world was shutting down, because you know when you go to the airport here and you get your little ticket in for the parking lot, and if something goes wrong, you press a button on the way out, and these two guys come and go, what's up, and stuff, and then you know, you tell them what's happened, and they open the thing up for you. That happened to me, but the guys wouldn't come anywhere near me. They were like 10 foot away with their masks on, you know, just started. They're like, press the button, off you go, it's fine, it's free, off you go. So then we had, you know, we were at home for, you know, the 2 years and thinking, well, what do we do with this? Because originally it was going to be like an album with, you know, all instrumentals, like, you know, Rodalius, Mobius, and Eno. We were going to do something like that. And then we thought, well, we can give it to some people, see what slightly vocals. And I know James Murphy, so I called him up and said, hey, do you want to sing on something? He doesn't sing on anybody's other stuff other than his own. So he went, yeah, I'd love to. And then he told me, well, my son is a drummer. And he loves you and he loves Budgie. And I said, I'll tell you what, I'll do you a deal. I'll send him iPhone videos of me playing different Cure songs, right? And you sing a couple of songs. He's like, okay, done. And it took about 18 months, but he did it. In the end, I had to call him up and go, I'm coming to Brooklyn. I'm going to sit there with you while you finish this. He said, oh, okay, I'll have it done. And he had it done straight away. And then Budgie knew Bobby Gillespie and called him up, and Bobby had like 3 songs straight away. Like, okay, I'll sing on this, this, and this. And so it was brilliant. And then we met all kinds of people like we never knew. Like Jackknife was working with Lonnie Holly, and yeah, Lonnie Holly is brilliant. If you haven't heard him, he's absolutely brilliant. He has his own language. Like he sings on this thing, he makes words that are like 2 or 3 words joined together that are like a whole new word. But when you hear it, you know exactly what he's talking about. And you know, we had a few other people on there.
Some Irish guitar player?
Yeah, there's this guy at the Edge. He played on it, yeah.
And one of the great artists that you featured on the record is Mary Lattimore, the harpist.
Oh, yes.
And she told me the story of what The Cure represented to her as a girl growing up in the American South and feeling like there must be more to the world than what she was presented with, and how The Cure opened up the doors of perception to bring it back to your passage in the beginning.
Wow.
But what I find most inspiring about what you've discussed tonight is that you've continued to evolve as an artist. And you were talking about how once bands get to a certain phase, everybody assumes a particular role.
Right.
And because you would have died otherwise, you were booted from that role
Right.
in The Cure.
Right.
And then now, 30 years after that,
Yeah.
you're an author of 2 books, and you've gone and made a record with one of your childhood friends, essentially,
Yeah.
that was there when you were starting out and evolved musically. And did it feel the same, or did it feel new? What was
Did it feel the same as what? Like when I first started?
when you started writing songs? Yeah.
Yes, in that way it did, because we had a lot more naivety about it, obviously, back then than I do now. And in some ways it's a lot easier. Your back doesn't hurt quite as much just playing drums as it does now, but yeah, no, life's like that. You don't know what's going to happen. And I feel blessed and privileged to have lived the life I have with all its ups and downs, because it has brought me to this place that I am here today, which is a lovely place to be in my life. I feel lovely. I have wonderful friends. I'm going to tell you something very important about this man tonight, right? Joe is a good friend of mine. Joe became a father last night.
Yeah, that's why I'm so. If I sound totally inarticulate, that's why. That's my excuse. I already start blaming things on the kid.
But I said to him when he told me last night, because we would think, well, what's happened since the baby comes along? And he said, oh, I'll probably do it. The baby came last night, and I'm like, you don't have to do it. I can always, I've got somebody else I can call, to happen. And he said, no, I'm coming. So that's lovely. So your daughter will probably blame me in future about things, but
She'll become a Republican. I mean,
well, I hope that
just to spite me.
You've assured me that I can be her goth father, right?
Yes.
Right, thank you. I would love to be. Yeah.
Well,
He said it, right?
I think they've heard enough of my meandering, inarticulate dribble. So let's take some questions from the audience. I think we have time for 4 questions.
Yeah.
All right. If anyone has a question, raise your hand.
Raise your hands and shout loudly, because I'm a little deaf.
I guess we covered it all. Anyone?
Oh.
Yes.
What are you doing after the Budgie project? You want to play with us?
Who's us?
Me, and I have another guitarist. I'm here in LA.
Okay. I guess I better have a listen and see what you do first, right?
Oh, I'll give you my info after.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
If you had a flyer, you know how bands used to put like looking for drummer, must have professional gear in a band,
Yeah, exactly.
and what are your influences that you would put on that flyer?
With the little tear-off phone numbers, I got you.
Yeah, so what are the influences you would put on that flyer?
Well, if it wasn't him, along with all the other ones just mentioned, I wouldn't be in the right place now, would I?
Very true. Okay. Yes.
What's your next book after golf?
Good question. I am starting on the next book. My publisher's here. Well, actually, I think he might have left. He had to go and do some other things. But I'm going to put both the books, not together, but I'm going to do the next natural evolution of it, which is, it's not starting a cult. I'm not starting a cult, but I did think about that for a while, but I'm going to connect the dots, if you like, because there's a belief system that's become very apparent to me, but I want to illuminate it a bit more with, so that sounds a bit airy-fairy, but it'll include music as well, don't worry.
You're not a Scientologist, are you?
No, I'm not. No, I'm not. Although I have been to the Celebrity Centre to see a friend of mine sing, and it was kind of eye-opening. Anyway,
Yes,
long
sir.
story. Yeah.
Yes. How influential was Gothic literature to the songwriting of The Cure? Because I know Mervyn Peake's Gormenghast trilogy is one of Robert Smith's favorite books.
Yes, absolutely. The Gormenghast was one of Robert's favourite books, and I'm sure it still is today. I think, if you listen, The Drowning Man, that has a definite influence from that. We venerated, like I write in Goth, as The Cure, we venerated the written word. We all read, and we were all interested in reading and writing. When I was 14, I went to school because I was Catholic. My mother was a Catholic convert. I went to school in a different town than I lived in. And that's how I met, Robert and everybody else, and hung out with them. But in the summer, when I was 14 years old, I could not hang out with them because I didn't have the wherewithal to get. I didn't drive, and I was probably a little too young to get on the bus and go over. So I spent the summer of my 14th year at home with like 3 library tickets, and I'd go to the library. And in England, 1 library ticket gets you 3 books. I had enough or 3 records, so I had enough for like 3 books, 9 books or 9 records, and I would get a selection. I would get any record they had, I would listen to it, and any book. So I read a lot of stuff, and all of those kind of things came in at that point, and that saved me. That was my friend, really. So that's the way I looked at literature and stuff. When we were growing up as well, we had an English teacher, Mr. Ansell, and he gave us all the love of the written word. He showed us that you could change the world with words. Very, very powerful. So that's always been in our heads. That was part of the bond.
I think we have time for one more.
One more. Okay, this.
So now everybody raises their hand.
Well, now they're not scared anymore. At first, they don't.
After party at the Batcave, everybody. Yes.
yeah.
Yes, sir.
All right.
I noticed in your, I just got a hold of your book, and I noticed you have a little section on Wire, and I was wondering, did you guys ever tour with Wire? Are you friends with Helen Newman, or do you have any little anecdotes you would care to share about the early days?
Yeah, I mean, I've got an anecdote. I think I've probably written about it in one of the books, but we played with Wire a couple of times, and they were very. It's very funny. They were very influential in a way because they were very stark, black and white presentation. I think the singer had a snare drum that he would bang under his arm. So I thought, okay, I've got to get one of those things to put on my kit. And I remember meeting Lewis backstage. Had a very normal haircut, and then he had this big rat's tail at the back, and then freaked me out. I was like, wow, where is it? That's so weird, And the music was good. Fast forward, what's interesting to me is the last time I actually saw them play here, but now they sound like The Cure. So, it's like full circle. It's like this whole thing, But yeah, definitely their whole attitude and way of doing things was very pivotal to us. Yeah.
Are we good? Yeah, so now it's for anybody who wants to have their books signed, Lowell will be accommodating.
Yeah, absolutely.
So where is that going to be?
Okay.
In the back. And so thank you so much, and we'll see you for the 3rd book in a few years.